You're not imagining things. This is not a crack in your mental faculties, and you're not losing your hold on reality. It's a naturally occurring thing, and it's happening all over the world. If you don't know what it is, you've come to the right place. The it is crazy stuff like greenhouse explosions and volcano lightning storms. It's miles-long walls of sand and tsunamis made of ice chunks. Don't get us started with murder hornets and locust plagues. We've got the footage. Here are 15 of the most dangerous natural phenomena recorded on camera.
This is called volcanic lightning, and it occurs when an eruption creates static electricity.
Africa splitting in two. Splitting a continent in two is quite common in the Earth's history. That's how the Atlantic Ocean came to be. Notice how Africa and South America could fit perfectly together like two puzzle pieces? That's because they were once one landmass. A massive crack suddenly appeared in Kenya recently, and the crack continues to grow in size as heavy rainfall in Kenya's Narok County weakens the half-mile chasm. With reports of earthquakes occurring at the same time on a newly forming tectonic plate boundary, it's natural to think that this is why the breakup, or rifting, is happening. While scientists have known for quite some time about the rifting in Africa, it's a complex situation. Some experts suggest it's due to a superplume upwelling along the eastern edge of the continent burning a hole in Earth's crust, but others disagree. They're saying that the crack was in fact formed by erosion due to recent heavy rains in the region. Rainwater washed away deep layers of loose volcanic ash deposited by previous volcanic eruptions in the Rift Valley. A further look at satellite imagery indicated that similar erosion can be seen nearby. But this crack is whack.
The other thing is we have geological maps. It's clear there's a buried fault line here.
Hey, did you know that if you smash the like button, subscribe, and click the notification bell, you're more likely to win the lottery? So what are you waiting for? Hungry Sinkhole. In the Mexican state of Puebla, a giant sinkhole formed, aided by a series of rainy days which saw it double in size, reaching over 400 feet in length at some points, and after swallowing a house, it's still unclear how large it could grow. Some experts said that it could be caused by an underground river, while residents have speculated that it's a result of water extraction by factories nearby. While the sinkhole has captured the world's attention, other local residents must be anxious that if the government doesn't find a way to stop its growth, their homes could end up in that hole. Environmental authorities say that the sinkhole is the result of geological changes in the soil and subsoil, while residents blame the large industrial conglomerates. Yet onlookers have flocked to the sinkhole to get a closer look. It's become a fixture in the local media, especially after two dogs became trapped in it for 4 days. The pooches, named Spay and Spike, had to be rescued by firefighters. Others have tried to capitalize on the sinkhole too. A local music group released a song about the sinkhole, and a local bakery began selling sinkhole-inspired bread that even includes small figurines of dogs inside the pastry. Incredible Alberta meteor. The Canadian prairies are famous around the world as a place to witness phenomenon in the nighttime skies, like solar flares from the surface of the sun referred to as the Northern Lights, but thousands of meteors occur in the Earth's atmosphere each day, mostly over the oceans or concealed by daylight. But on February 22nd of 2021, around 6:30 a.m., this meteor was very visible. It was also visible from other Canadian provinces and American states closer to the border. More than 500 reports from 3 Canadian provinces and Montana in the USA flooded the American Meteor Society about the event over the Canadian prairies, and the story took over social media and was featured in news coverage from around the world. After a deep dive into the data, scientists confirmed it was a meteor from an actual comet. The experts revealed that the comet was mainly composed of dust and ice particles, and it burned up before it touched the ground, 28 miles above the surface of the Earth. It was cruising at an absolutely mind-blowing speed, too, 136,000 miles per hour, 63 times faster than the world's fastest existing aircraft. It traveled a short visible path just north of Edmonton, the capital of Alberta. Winds of Mount Washington. Significant cold, abundant snowfall, dense fog, heavy icing, and exceptional winds are prominent features of Mount Washington. There are colder places and snowier places, but it has weather to rival some of the most rugged places on Earth. For over 60 years, this mountain in New Hampshire held the world record for the fastest wind gust ever recorded. The famous wind gust of 231 miles per hour, recorded in 1934, stands as the record for the fastest surface wind measured in the northern and western hemispheres. And since 1932, officials have been monitoring the elements using this unique site for scientific research and educational purposes. There are days each winter when the combination of life-threatening conditions on this mountain rival those of extremes recorded in the polar regions and on peaks 3 or 4 times Mount Washington's height. So to accurately record the winds is no simple matter. The fact that the 1934 observatory crew could measure a wind of this magnitude during a period of very heavy glaze icing is a tribute to their commitment to establishing this remote scientific landmark. Mega Desert Haboob. A haboob is a type of intense dust storm carried on a weather front, and believe it or not, they occur throughout the world. During the summer months in the southwestern United States, the monsoonal flow can provide heavy rains. If storms develop away from a dry area, it cools the air and accelerates it to the surface. These downward winds strike the desert valley floors. Dust gets picked up into the air and is pushed in the direction the winds are traveling. They can be huge and nightmarish. Sand and debris reach miles into the sky and leave up to a foot of sand in its path. Haboobs have been observed in the Sahara, across the Arabian Peninsula, the Arabian Peninsula, North Africa, the deserts of Central Australia, China, and of course, the United States. Like in the Middle East, their occurrences in North America are often created by a collapse of a thunderstorm. In fact, any dry region may experience haboobs. In the U.S., they frequently occur in the deserts of Arizona and New Mexico, including Albuquerque in Eastern California and in Texas, even in space. Global dust storms on the planet Mars have been compared to haboobs on Earth. Fire tornadoes. If you see one of these things up close, you're probably in for a very dangerous situation, a heated one. Most of the largest fire tornadoes are spawned from wildfires. They form when a warm updraft and a wildfire are present. Some can be more than a half-mile tall, contain wind speeds around 120 miles per hour. It's a clear sign that a wildfire has reached a very dangerous extreme. Fire tornadoes are created when the rising heat from a fire pulls in smoke, fire, and dirt, creating a spinning vortex above the blaze. The smoke plume literally behaves like a thunderstorm. Scary stuff. When a firenado was spotted near a fire in California, officials issued a tornado warning for a huge pyrocumulonimbus cloud that formed from wildfires, saying it was capable of producing a fire-induced tornado and outlaw winds in excess of 60 miles per hour. A quickly swelling wildfire produced a pyrocumulonimbus cloud that towered 30,000 feet high and began spitting out lightning. It also tapped into a change of wind speed and direction with altitude and began to rotate. After surveying the damage of the fire tornado, experts claimed it was equivalent to a regular tornado with winds in excess of 143 miles per hour. Beijing sandstorm. Officials in China recently issued a serious weather warning as storms fueled by heavy winds from the Gobi Desert covered the capital city of Beijing in dust, turning the blue sky yellow. Visibility was reduced to less than 3,300 feet. The dust was so thick, the tops of the buildings in central Beijing were barely visible and citizens could be seen wearing improvised headwear to protect their faces and lungs. It was even creeping into people's homes and businesses. Weather officials said that the storms were the worst in the last 10 years. To make matters worse, Beijing was already plagued by higher levels of air pollution, with smog hanging over the city. Widespread deforestation and soil erosion throughout northern China have made the situation worse, however, and they've been trying to make it better. A great green wall of trees to trap incoming dust had been planted, and authorities have tried to create air corridors that channel the wind and allow sand and other pollutants to pass through more quickly. Reforesting will limit how much sand is blown into the capital. Let's hope it works. It might be a challenge to clean up Mother Nature's dusty mess. The Great Smog of London. Britain has a lot of experience with mists and fog. Londoners were used to it. However, from Friday till Tuesday in December 1952, the Great Smog of London rolled in, a mix of fog and pollution. Visibility dropped to a few feet, and the sun was too low in the sky to burn the smog off the city, making it impossible for pedestrians to find their way. The weather had been very cold, with heavy snowfalls across the region. To keep warm, the people of London were burning coal in their homes. Smoke was pouring from their chimneys. Under normal conditions, it would rise into the atmosphere and disperse, but an anticyclone was hanging over the region. This creates an inversion, where air close to the ground is cooler than the air high above it. So when the warm smoke came out of the chimney, it was trapped. Public transport ceased, and the ambulance service stopped. In fact, research suggests that the total number of fatalities may have been between 10,000 and 12,000 deaths. While it heavily affected the population of London, causing a huge death toll and inconveniencing millions of people, the people it affected were also partly to blame for those dark days. The polar vortex. Located about 10 to 30 miles above Earth's surface in the layer of the atmosphere known as the stratosphere, a powerful force is at work. The polar vortex is a massive three-dimensional ring of winds that surrounds the north and south poles during each hemisphere's winter. They blow from west to east with sustained speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour, with temperatures getting lower than minus 110 degrees Fahrenheit. The strength can vary widely during winter, which leads to shifts in the strength and position of the fast-flowing river of air beneath the polar vortex. When the jet stream changes, weather systems are affected, and that's when different parts of the world see strange and unusual weather. Like a domino effect, it can start a chain of events and later result in all sorts of unpredictable weather. In essence, the perfect storm. These changes can be unpleasantly noticeable for those of us on Earth, but maybe we're not alone. Other astronomical bodies are also known to have them, including Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and Saturn's moon Titan. Devastating locust plagues. Desert locusts have often been called the world's most devastating pest, and for good reason. A huge wave of them has threatened East Africa. You can't imagine how gnarly these locust invasions can be. Swarming in the trillions, they destroy precious crops, and this is considered the worst regional locust plagues in a decade, from Kenya through Ethiopia and Yemen, reaching northern India too. A swarm of just more than a third of a square mile can eat the same amount of food in one day as 35,000 people. Swarms form when locust numbers increase and they become crowded. This causes a switch from a relatively harmless solitary phase to a frenzied sociable phase. This invasion from breeding grounds includes more young adults, which are especially voracious eaters. While many are justifiably worried about famine and the economic fallout of these swarms, entomologists see them as a more existential warning from nature. The swarms have been the worst seen in 70 years, and currently the countries are battling the second generation or wave of locusts as they've already reproduced and hatched once within the region, and reinfestation could continue. Terrifying spider rain. In what's called a mass ballooning, these tiny arachnids use silk strands to catch the wind on their way to find a new home. The phenomenon is a fairly routine part of spider migration observed by scientists for centuries, but that doesn't make it any less unsettling. Down under, millions of spiders dropped from the sky in Australia's southern tablelands region, blanketing the countryside with their silky webs. But there are ecological benefits as well. Spiders tend to be the first creatures to recolonize an area. They don't have any control over where they go, but can travel hundreds of miles, even landing on islands in the middle of the ocean, which is probably why these eight-legged critters can be found all over the globe. And Australia is not alone. In Brazil, residents in a rural area recently reported raining spiders, but don't be fooled. While it looks like the spiders are falling from the sky, they're actually hanging in a giant web to catch prey. The giant web ceilings hang between trees and bushes and can measure up to 13 feet high and 10 feet wide. The species' community web is so fine that it's nearly impossible for the human eye to see, giving the illusion that the spiders are floating on air. Crazy volcanic lightning. Volcanic lightning has very little to do with tectonic activity and everything to do with everyday physics. It's not formed deep in the earth like lava. It only forms in the volcanic plume, the column of volcanic ash emitted by erupting volcanoes. And the phenomenon has been recorded around the world in a number of recent volcanic eruptions. But what you may not know is that this phenomenon was not only captured during Mount Vesuvius' last eruption in 1944, but was accurately described nearly 2,000 years ago when it erupted all the way back in the year 79. That's a long time ago. Here's how it happens. As densely packed particles are violently ejected into the air in a volcanic plume, they rub against each other. Through this friction, ash particles gain and lose electrons, and they become electrically charged. Ice also plays a role. Researchers tracked the location of lightning strikes during an eruption. The bolts were breaking 60 miles from the eruption, about 12 miles above Earth. The scientists think ice formed in the top of the thinning ash cloud, which was also carrying water vapor. This too produced lightning like a thundercloud does. Bigger eruptions trigger more lightning. See? Physics. huge ice tsunami. Ice tsunamis, also known as ice shoves, are rare but well-documented events as far back as 1822. However, recently, the National Weather Service in New York State issued a warning about dangerous wind gusts in the Lake Erie region. The service urged citizens to seek shelter indoors and avoid traveling if possible. Winds peaked at 74 miles per hour, the level of a Category 1 hurricane, and tore down trees and power lines. People who got close to Lake Erie during the windstorm witnessed a rare event, an ice tsunami. When wind pushed ice on the lake surface toward the retaining wall, the sheet broke apart and moved massive ice chunks. The ice was on the water surface but was blown off the lake and onto the shore. The first slabs or sheets moved on shore, creating a traffic jam with ice piling on top and behind. With the buildup of ice and the power behind it, it's the potential to damage anything in its path. Ice tsunamis tend to occur when three conditions are in place. The event is more common in springtime. There has to be strong winds blowing through the area, and there's a gently sloping shoreline like Lake Erie. Invasion of the murder hornets. These vicious insects, seen for the first time in North America, were spotted near Blaine, Washington recently. They're Asian giant hornets, or murder hornets, the world's largest wasps. They eat many kinds of insects, but they seem to especially enjoy feasting on bees, and they're capable of massacring entire hives in a matter of hours. But bad news for us, the sting is far more painful and toxic than that of a honeybee. Experts say that most people can survive 1 or 2 stings, but if you sustain multiple stings, the venom will actually start getting into your bloodstream and will start working on your organs, and multiple stings could literally be fatal. As of now, researchers can't confirm how the hornets arrived in North America, but the murder hornets from Japan and East Asia already have established themselves as invasive species in other nations, such as South Korea. The 4 confirmed sightings in the United States, along with 2 more in Canada, occurred in 2019 between September and December. The American sightings were all of individual hornets, but a nest was found and destroyed on Vancouver Island in Canada. Permafrost explosions. Bubbles of methane gas swelling beneath melting permafrost have burst open in Siberia. If you don't know, permafrost is soil that stays frozen year-round. It locks up organic materials like dead plants and keeps them from rotting. When the permafrost thaws, all that organic material starts to decompose. The decomposition releases potent greenhouse gases like methane. This natural phenomenon was first observed by scientists just 6 years ago, and now it's causing the ground to explode spontaneously and with tremendous force regularly, leaving craters up to 100 feet deep. Russia's Arctic and Siberian regions, already warming at a faster rate than the rest of the world, are facing a historic summer. A heat wave accompanied by wildfires, fuel spills, crop failures, and more. So these explosions are always a risk. Permafrost researchers have said that this heat has accelerated the expansion of a huge crater that appeared in eastern Siberia following deforestation in the 1960s. It's an ongoing problem. The methane builds up a lot of pressure over time, then boom, permafrost explosions.